Okay, welcome to the third installment in this series on graphics and animation, COM 3060, and this unit will discuss primitives and the numeric pad. And mostly we'll be talking about the types of primitives that you can do and how you use them and what the numeric pad is for. So once again, we find ourselves in the interface for Modeler, and this is the four quadrants. And in this case, I'm going to go back to Creative, and we've already talked about some of these. But the first primitive that we're going to bring into place is the box. And of course, a box is like that. You can move it around. And if you look at it in the perspective view, you can see that it is a box. Now, a box can be anything that you want it to be as long as it's a box. It's basically a rectangle. It could be a square, but it's automatically a rectangle. Boxes, if you look at them in point mode, you can see that they contain all the points necessary to make the 6 sides, all the lines necessary, and of course if you're in polygon mode, you can select one surface of the box like that. Essentially very simple geometry. So what I'm going to show you now, so I'm going to get rid of this and make it again because I have to do this in box mode. But let's say there is the box, and if I hit the N key on the keyboard, you'll see that I get the numeric pad. And the numeric pad gives you the ability to control all of these things in a very specific way. Now look at the width, height, and depth. These are your basic dimensions. This is the first thing that you want to start with. And let me tell you why this is important. Let's say you're making something that you eventually want to 3D print, and you're making it to exact measurements. You may not be able to match the measurements exactly, but you can match the proportions. So right now this says 1.45 meters. I'm going to change that to 5 or 6 meters rather. And if I hit the Tab key, you'll notice that the box gets a whole lot wider. And so let's say that for height, I'll put 6 meters again. And for depth, 6 meters again. So that's a big square. So let's back off a little bit. But you'll notice that now this is, in fact, a perfect cube. Now, while I'm still here, this will save you a lot of headache. I'm going to turn all of the positioning units to 0. 0, tab, 0, tab, 0. Now, this cube is exactly in the center of the grid. And so therefore, when I save the object, it won't have any unusual things where you rotate it and it kind of orbits instead of rotates. And so we'll stick with it from there. Now, the other thing that you can do here, which is kind of important, is that you can add segments. So if you look in the bottom of the numeric pad, X, Y, and Z, I'm going to add some segments on the X-axis, just dragging that over to the right. And so it creates that. It's creating geometry that you can use later. Then I'm going to add segments on the Y-axis, and I'm going to add the same amount, 6. I don't know why I'm doing 6s today, but that's okay. And finally on the Z-axis. Now notice how that affects that. And so one of the reasons why you want to do that is so that you can use that geometry and morph that image. And we'll show you how to do that in a second. The other thing this one gives you for a cube is it allows you to give it radius segments, which gives you the effect of rounding it off. So you can have a rounded edge, which can save you some time if you're trying to do something like a die or something like that. And so there's your cube. And so if I turn off the numeric pad and turn off box, you can see that if I'm in polygon mode, I can grab some of these polygons, and now suddenly I have the ability to morph this thing in a slightly different way than I might have otherwise. And of course, if I were to do it like what I just did, if I'm looking at the top of it, that's where those polygons would come up, and the polygons on the bottom, which I selected and didn't deselect, go inward. So that gives you the ability to make different shapes. All right, so going back to create, I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of this. Let's say that you choose a different primitive. You can create a ball, which again, using Numeric Pad, you can make that a perfect sphere by simply giving all the radiuses the same number, and you can position it in exactly the center of the space by just turning all those to 0. And you can control the number of sides and surfaces. You can actually make something more like a simple geometric shape with this. Those are just some of the things that you can do. And you can play around with this. Now, another one that you're going to use a lot is disk. If you create a disk, really what you're creating is the beginning of a cylinder or something else. So, as you can see, you've got a cylinder. And we'll show you how you can use that and turn that into a wine glass or something like that later on. And if I go into Numeric Pad, pretty much basically all that stuff is the same. A cone, kind of self-explanatory there. One that you may find that you use more often than you'd expect to is a toroid or a Taurus. And this one is usually comes kind of pre-made, and it gives you this effect here. You can mess with it, but it's a little bit more difficult, and that becomes kind of like a donut shape, which you can use to make rings or things of that nature. And there's also other ones that they have. Some are more useful than others, and pretty much those are the best ones, though. You got gemstones, gears, and you can play around with those things, but really you can do almost anything with the first few that are up there. Those are primitives, and I've shown you how to use the Numeric Pad. And so essentially this will allow you to create all kinds of geometric shapes and modify them using the Numeric Pad.